got this chill in my body, and I said, "Oh my God, Jesus is here." And I felt this love in my heart space that was like, it was like he was hugging me, and the presence was pure, pure love.
Peggy Oberthier, welcome to Passion Harvest. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Louisa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I love your energy. I'm just smiling already, but let's start. You're an incredible medical intuitive. What does this mean for the audience?
Yes, that's a very good question because there's no real, I guess, agreed terminology of what it is. For some people, medical intuition, people get a 3D scan of the body and they're able to get that X-ray vision, and then they're able to kind of diagnose and tell clients exactly what's happening. Medical disclaimer, I don't do any diagnosis. I'm not a registered doctor or anything like that. For me, the information comes in as a knowing, and I get some visions. I get information about the body's energetic field, the emotional, spiritual, and physical energy bodies. That's what I get information about. But not only do I get information about what's happening in the body and sort of the causes of some of that pain and suffering that you might be experiencing, I get I have an ability to hold this frequency, I guess. I haven't really understood this whole concept of transmutation, but I can help you shift the those blocks from your body. So that's one of the extra things that I have is that, so I guess some people call it energy healing. I don't like that word. I like to say that I hold a particular frequency to allow you to release. And so I guess that's how I would define medical intuition.
Thanks, Peggy. And you work with beings during your sessions. Do you mind talking about that? Who are the beings and how do they assist you and how do you
Oh,
connect with
yes.
them? That's lots of
Oh, yes.
questions, but
Oh, yes. No, yes, I do that. Thank you so much. That's an excellent question. Straight off the bat, we'll go straight into the woo-woo because I don't do this alone. It takes me about 2 hours and I connect with my guides. I just call in a whole series of, you name it, I'll call them in. And sometimes I just ask the expert of the universe. So I call in the ascended masters, I call in angels, the unemployed angels, any angels willing to assist. I usually call in Metatron. I really love Metatron as well, specifically. And then sometimes I get hits. Kuan Yin wants to help today, Isis, Master Asui, and what I'm doing is that client usually ends up resonating quite strong with those ascended masters for some reason. I always bring in Jesus and Buddha. And then I call in the elementals. I work with dragons, which is a little bit crazy to say, but I call in the dragons. The dragons are very powerful transmuters and they also protect my energy. And then I call in my star family, the Arcturians and the Pleiadians, who I work. I guess that's the technology that I'm using in some of my light language transmissions. And so I spend a long time bringing them in to my field and asking for them to support me in the session for the highest good of the client.
people always ask this question, how can I connect with angels or elementals and have more guidance? What is your advice or tools or tips to
I
connect with?
love that. I love that question. The thing is, for the longest time, you just have to, you just ask, and I don't know if they're there or not, right? You just have to trust. Before I had this sort of really strong knowing, and you kind of get a little bit flat because everyone else is getting these visuals and you're comparing yourself. The thing is absolutely stop comparing and just trust and know that they're there. If you literally just say, can you please come and support? Like if I say, Raphael, come in, and I'm closing my eyes, I will see green. Like it's literally that fast. Now, some people have blocks on their crown, so they're not necessarily able to connect as quickly. Um, but meditation practice and slowing down the nervous system and trying to get out of your monkey mind is one of the ways. And then just in that sort of calmer state, you're able to, you just call them in, and then you can ask for signs and little tiny synchronicities just start showing up. But you have to trust, 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 because they are definitely there. They're all there. It's one of the things I always work with my clients. I say, do you ever ask for help? They go, no. I said, listen, they're just, like I had a client this morning and there was very clear guidance as we started our grounding. And the message came in, tell her we're always here. And so my client just said, I said, look, I have a message that says, they're always here. She said, that is so funny because I'm always saying, are you there? Are you there? And so the message I got was very clear. So I just said to her, you don't have to say, are you there? They are there. I hope that makes sense for people.
And in a sense, also with whether meditation or just having some quiet time, you mentioned the monkey mind, the answers aren't going to come like we're having a conversation today. They may come in signs or symbols or insights or sudden inspiration.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I did my mentorship, with 8 people, and some people were getting so many visuals, and they're saying, oh, there's a blue dragon flying by, and oh, I see this and that, and I got no visuals, and I was constantly just going, well, am I actually connected? Like, what's happening? Because mine came in as a claircognizance, as a knowing, and I guess when it comes in like that, you wonder, like, is it true? Is it a real message? But now, of course, now I trust. It's taken me a long time to trust. But the thing is not to compare, because it's not necessarily going to come in as as a visual. And that you're not going to see like angel wings or blue dragons flying through your room. I think a few people get that, but most people, it's probably just more of a claircognizance.
And it is comforting to know that they are actually always there supporting us.
Correct. Absolutely. That's the thing, that they're always there. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, they're in the sessions when I'm working with people that, sometimes they like when a person will say, oh, I guess I couldn't work with the fairies. I go, oh, the fairies are here. They're kissing you. And they go, oh, yes, I can feel this tingling on my head. Or like, it's so visceral when they're finally, I guess, they're encouraged to actually tune in, and sometimes you just need a little bit of extra support to help you feel that energy. And that can happen through high vibrational practices and, really a lot of self-love and self-care as well. That really helps them get connecting.
Thank you. Now, you had a mystical experience where Jesus presented himself to you. And I'd
Yes.
love to hear about that and for you to share that with the audience.
Oh, yes. Look, I grew up Catholic, so I was very connected to Jesus. But then in my university days, I was a wayward Catholic girl, and I ended up, I guess I shifted to atheism, full-blown atheism. And how I discovered my medical intuitive gifts was I actually had a 3-hour medical intuitive session with a incredible, powerful medical intuitive called Patrice Christofiak. And in the session with him, I was in the session and I said, I just got this. It's like all my senses, all my sinuses cleared. It sounds very strange, but I've got this chill in my body. And I said, oh my God, Jesus is here. And I felt this love in my heart space that was like, it was like he was hugging me. Um, and the presence was pure, pure love. It was this incredible. And I said, oh, Jesus is here. And Patrice, who sees visuals, he said, oh, yeah, he's in the back seat of your car. Because I was doing my session, because it was 4 in the morning and I didn't want to wake my family. So I was sitting in the garage in my car. And I was bawling my eyes out because it was like I was finally returning home to the comfort that I felt from Jesus when I was younger. It was quite a beautiful experience. I mean, now Jesus shows up all the time, and it's quite he's very powerful. He can be quite cheeky and funny, and yeah, he's a beautiful, beautiful presence.
And thank you. And the work that you do, you talk about how stuck emotions or energy blockages create energy blockages and can show up as illnesses within the body. Do you mind exploring that a little bit more? And what does that mean?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I guess when I was when I was younger, I my dad was a vast, like a very big follower of this guy called Dr. Sarno, who was sort of the first person who started writing about repressed rage and how, some neck pain is actually not neck pain and it's repressed rage. He likened it every single emotion to repressed rage. Now, when I'm working with clients, I can see that we have these energetic charges. I guess the human experience in, when we're experiencing this duality of love, compassion, joy, ecstasy, gratitude, and fear, anxiety, stress, and sadness, we are meant to experience both of them. But when we have those lower vibrational emotions, we're meant to feel them and let them pass through our body. But our modern day society, we just don't have rituals. We have learned all we have forgotten how to express anger, fear. We don't have the dancing, we don't have the chanting, we're not out in nature enough. We don't reset with in community, and we don't get enough hugs. We've lost our ability to sort of transmute and pass through emotions like we're supposed to. And I think that they get stuck in our nervous system, in our muscles, in our fascia, in our organs. It's like an energetic charge that's negative and it just gets stuck there. And so what I see when I'm working with clients is that, and the emotions that get stuck, and we can go to therapy, and therapy is very powerful and beautiful, but it just gives us this intellectual understanding of what's gone on. And it doesn't necessarily we can cry, which is quite cathartic. Grief is kind of easier to release, but things like shame and guilt and rage and disappointment, those are feelings that just get caught. And when I work with clients, I get like, I'll just get a hit and it'll say, 4 years old, powerlessness, and they say, oh, yeah, that was a time that was really bad. And then I'll just, and so it just, whatever comes through, and then I can speak a light language to help them release it. And sometimes they're shaking, they're crying, they're physically releasing. They might get chills, they might get hot, they might get nauseous, but it's coming up. And then I'm having these somatic reactions as I'm helping the client transmute the emotion. But they do, and those charges just get stuck there. And then over time, that's where I think the disease and the chronic illness, the chronic pain, it just shows up and it just embeds in there. And then we treat that as the symptom rather than the root cause. So, yeah.
It makes sense for those of the audience that are listening that may feel or don't even know if they have stuck emotions. What's your advice for them to help release them?
Yeah, look, I think, talk therapy is a good start, but somatic release is like a very, very powerful tool. Any kind of yoga, breath work is really, really powerful. But I think the technology of the future is actually light language. And I know that sounds crazy,
It
but
doesn't.
I oh, that's good. I'm
Nothing's
so glad you
crazy
don't
on
think
this
it.
show.
Oh, I'm glad Louisa. So what's really cool when I work what I discovered when I was trained as a medical intuitive is that the light language is this it's like basically gibberish with intention. It's the language of your soul. And it's not just reserved for people who are masters and channelers and healers. Every single person has their own light language. Every single person. And it might be a hum, it could be a hand gesture, it could be, but sometimes so at the very beginning, and I said, would you like to release that? Do you want to try some light language? And they say, I guess so. I said, well, just imagine, staring at a baby and you're going goo, 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 gaga. And the baby looks back at you and the baby looks at you with this incredible love and reverence. And they know exactly what you're saying to them. And that's that frequency from my soul to the baby's soul. Now, you can set an intention to release any emotion, even if you don't know what it is, you say, oh, I've got this pain in my back. Oh, I think it could be related to my boss. I don't know. And then you can just drive in your car and just, speak gibberish with the intention to release. And it's like your body knows exactly what to do. So, I mean, that is like the best technology for me personally. And I think it's going to be the technology of the future. And I've seen the most incredible release because I was trained in talk therapy and then I got trained in EFT tapping. And tapping is still very powerful, but it's not as fast as light language. Because light language releases anything and it gets you out of your thinking mind. So you're not stuck in your memory center and your amygdala. So you don't want to like go back in the story because that just like reinforces the neural pathways of like, if you say, I'm so angry at my boss, and then you're just thinking about it over and over again. But if you just go, something like that, it just expresses it without having to think about it. So it's very cool. Now, but you have to, some people who are not really speaking light language, they've got to drop in their heart. They've got to, perhaps start with some meditation and some breath work. But yeah, connecting to light languages is beautiful.
It makes sense, and it's just a simple, wonderful technique. And as you said, anyone can do it.
Absolutely anybody. But sometimes there's a block, and these blocks are usually related to past lives where people have been killed for speaking their truth. They have been, so when they go to speak this, the truth, because it's pure truth coming out of your soul when you speak in that light language. It's the essence of truth. And if you've been killed, well, your body's going, don't say it, don't say it. You might get your head chopped off or you're going to be burnt at the stake again. And so sometimes when I work with clients, we have to clear some of those blocks in that throat chakra area before they can access the light language. And sometimes it takes a few months to get that light language fully going. But yeah, I'm always amazed how fast. And like when I'm shifting, so if I'm trying to hold a frequency, let's say the analogy is like somebody is like caught in a stream, like in the rip, as they would call in Australia. Um, I'm in the still point, and that's what my frequency is doing. And I'm like trying to bring somebody into the still point. Now, if they speak their light language, it just amplifies the release of any block. And it's so visceral that like I can be releasing, and they start speaking their light language, and I'll just go, whoa, and I'll throw up because it's like this huge like release of the block that was in their body that's coming. I'm like a conduit, I guess. Yeah, it's so powerful if people can learn it.
Thank you. You spoke about past lives, and even before the show, you mentioned, or you've thought, you just felt you knew me, and we've had a past life together. But how can this sort of work clear and heal our past life traumas?
Yeah, look, I think there's some things that can't be cleared, and there might be, karmic reasons why you have to just live the way you live or whatever. But if you are there, a lot of the past lives are related to limiting beliefs about ourselves. So, for example, we have these soul lessons that might be something like self-love. I mean, something so simple and it's so important, where or this lesson of shedding victimhood, right? So we keep showing up, and then we have all these things that make us another victim. And what sometimes when you go, look, I have shed that. I don't feel like a victim, but what's holding me back? And you say, oh, you know what? You've probably had at least 500 lives of being a victim because you haven't really learned it. So we have to, if you're ready to clear some of those past lives. So again, they just speak their light language, and it's like an energetic I guess a hold or a frequency that's caught in the body that is a subconscious connection to, a soul lesson that they haven't really worked through yet, if that makes sense. So I don't really know another way to describe it. It's just that, yeah, the and look, some people have had the horrible past lives that have when they arrive in this earth, they still have pain from it's from a previous past life. Or what I often see is that if you've been a perpetrator of, like, let's say you've, stabbed somebody in the back, you end up getting all this back pain, um, as a karmic kind of, tie. And so it's like, do you want to release that karmic tie? Do you forgive yourself? Do you want to release that? And that helps shed that particular pain.
Gosh,
Yeah.
everything's so intertwined, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so intricate and delicate. You speak about finding our soul's purpose. What is that, and how can we find our soul's purpose?
You know, I'm not very philosophical about the whole thing. It's just our soul's purpose is just to be, like, to be the pure essence of who we are. And a lot of people try to search for, like, the answer. What am I supposed to do? So what are you supposed to do is different to your purpose. Your purpose is just to be the full expression of who you are, right? And connect to your authentic self, which means that we have to shed the idea that we have to have external recognition of self-worth. We have to shed the idea of this societal programming of that we have to do this and make this much money and that much money. Like, if we strip all that back and we are just connected to ourself, like, that's your sole purpose. Is your sole purpose is just to be you and to love yourself. Like, I think I just put it as simple as that. I don't know. I know that there's a lot more eloquent people who describe this in a much more sophisticated way, but the way I kind of describe it with clients is like, who are you and what do you love and what do you like? And, really your goal here is to love yourself and just exactly the way you are, and your purpose is just to love yourself. And then when you love yourself, you have a higher vibration. And when you have a higher vibration, you just emanate, you're kinder, you're more loving. And then, it might be working in a flower shop, it might be, but when you're putting your flowers together, you have this love of putting your flowers together, and your heart is going into it because you love yourself and you're passionate about what you do. And those flowers hold that beautiful essence and, almost like a frequency. And when you give those flowers to people, it's like, ah, wow, those flowers are so special. So it's simple as that. It can be an ice cream shop, it can be a street sweeper. It's like, if you've, whatever it is, you are you, authentically you.
Beautiful way of expressing it, and it reminds me of that Dr. Zeus quote that I love. There's no one youer than you.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'd like to hear a little bit more about the dragons, if that's okay with you. I mean, I love dragons and I think they're fascinating.
Yes, well, I guess I connected with dragons about 6 months ago now. And I was sitting in a meditation, just, quietly doing my thing, and my whole body kind of contorted. And I made this sound. I was like, what is going on? I'm going crazy. I could feel this presence in my body. So I had to message my mentor and I said, look, I need some help here because I don't know what's going on. And he just said, oh, it's just the dragons coming through. Don't worry that, and so, oh, okay, the dragons. So then the next few sessions that I joined with him, if there was a need for a big extraction of some kind of, like, implant or like a demon or entity that we're trying to, get out of a client. So did a lot of joint sessions with him for months and other people, and even in mentorship. I joined his I was in the mentorship, but then anyway, he would call me in and then he'd say, okay. And then the dragons would come out and my whole body just goes a little bit crazy. It's kind of embarrassing. But it's a very powerful presence to help remove a block in a person. So the dragons, for me, they come in and they protect my energy, and they're also really very powerful transmuters. And that's it. I don't see them. I know that clients have said, oh my God, there's like a big blue dragon around you. Huh? Okay. And then other clients have said that to me, the ones that see the visuals. So I guess I do work with the dragons, and I call them in to help me. So I don't know where they come from. I don't. I listened to your beautiful description of this other world, and I thought, oh, that is exactly what I would envisage if I could imagine or if I could see it. Like, yeah, it was perfect. Your description was very lovely.
Oh. Well, thanks, Peggy. Where's the best place for people to connect with you?
So I am on peggyo.com.au. It's a very simple website because my surname is so long.
Thank you. And I will leave a link in the show notes description. For anyone that missed that, you could just click on the link. On a final note, Peggy, is there anything else you'd like to share with the Passion Harvest audience today that I haven't asked you?
That's a good question. Um, I think, when you're on this self-discovery journey of like, trying to find your passion, trying to find, your soul purpose, it can feel very, very frustrating. We're meant to be in communities. We're meant to be like villages of support. And, I would suggest, join a group healing. Like group healing is really, really, really powerful. Work with a practitioner, help them clear blocks because, they're there. You shouldn't do it alone. There's lots of lovely communities out there. And yeah, I just think that, yeah, you got to find your tribe to feel connected. Because this kind of, if you're watching this podcast, then you might be into the woo. Sometimes it can be kind of lonely to have those
Mhm.
conversations about dragons and implants and all those kinds of things. Groups are a really powerful way of releasing any blocks. So that would be my recommendation. And also, the spiritual awakening journey, it's not linear. It's like it goes like this, right? So if the triggers are showing up for you, you have to go, oh, why are they showing up for me? What do I have to release? Yeah,
Well,
I guess
Peggy,
that's it.
thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest. I really appreciate your time today
Oh,
and
it's been an
insights and all the
oh,
wonderful work you're doing.
thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for
Oh,
having me, Louisa.
okay. Bye, Peggy.
Bye.